So today's topic is about you and your child. And from a systemic perspective of constellation, it's very important to understand what a child represents in our life and why do we experience a certain kind of child in our life. And if there's anything that doesn't sit well with us, something that doesn't resonate with us, something that triggers us within our child space, is basically something constellation work talks a lot about. So I wanted to create an awareness around what that relationship of yours is projecting to you that needs to be looked at. So, from the perspective of constellation, I'll just read some of the stuff I've got here. Has it very different? So, constellation looks at children from a very different perspective than mainstream parenting, content that we come across. Most parenting talks focus on behavioral management of a child and basically changing the child and molding the child and looking at a certain diagnosis when it comes to a behavior of a child. But in constellation framework, it is simply a question that I ask my clients who come up as parents to see what is a child carrying from the family system through their behavior, through their triggers, through their patterns, right? Um, so often people come to me and ask me, how do I fix my child or how do I change the behavior of my child? I do remember in the earlier years of my practice, I used to come across a lot of these parents who used to bring their children to me in the beginning. I used to attract a lot of parents and things like that, mainly because I was also navigating a lot of my own complex dynamic that I was experiencing with my own children. So earlier in the earlier years of my practice, as I was also continuing my healing journey, a lot of parents used to come to me highly upset, triggered, insecure, also sometimes depressed when it used to come to their relationship with their child. So constellation basically helps us to identify what that is triggering inside of us. So today's talk is not about teaching about parents, because one thing is very clear from my own personal experiences and the practice that I do, that as the children are growing, we as parent also evolve and we grow. So there is no real handbook also given to us. But today's awareness talk is all about um, gently inviting you as a parent to see your child differently from how we normally tend to perceive them through a systemic lens. All right. So this is the whole idea of today's talk. And as I was formulating understanding around this very complex dynamic, I came across many other sub themes also, and that made me wonder. One talk is actually not going to be enough to cover up everything that constellation talks about in terms of a child and parent relationship. So there were many other core themes that emerged in my understanding, and I thought maybe I'll do this in parts, because a child is in a very different zone when it comes to from their year 1 to year 12 is a very different timeline for them as opposed to when they are in their teenage years and then when they are young adolescent. So I was thinking of doing it in parts instead of combining all these very different developmental stages of a child together. So that was one thing that came to my mind. First of all, it's very important to understand what constellation says about this topic. I'll give you an analogy to think about. The analogy is of a stone that we probably throw in a still lake. The ripple reaches every corner. Families basically work the same way. When something painful remains unresolved within a family structure, its effect can ripple through different generations, just like the analogy I gave you. So it ripples out, which basically means that constellation work helps us to explore those hidden patterns, not to blame anyone, but to understand the systemic influence on these very complex relationships we tend to experience in our life. So, constellation work helps us to understand where the imbalance is coming from, what is happening between me and my child that is causing uh, any behavioral issue. Sometimes eating disorders are also there. So Bert Hellinger, who is the founder of Constellation work, has observed that families tend to function more harmoniously when certain systemic principles, which are identified as orders of love, are honored and respected. And these are not moral values, and these are not a construct of a human mind. These are the universal laws that, when they are violated, it sends a ripple effect, like I was explaining, in the family field. The number one thing we have to understand as parents is that parents always give and children receive. That is the natural order of this dynamic. Um, so parents give life, care, protection, provision, guidance, and children receive all of that. When children begin emotionally taking care of their parents, and we know that this is called parentified, where this connection of a parent and a child is inverted, it creates a disorder and dysfunction in that system. We all know that this is called parentification, and over a period of time, it can affect a child's emotional well being, relationships, and the ability. So, what is actually taken away from such a child when that role is inverted? And often it is inverted when the child themselves, himself or herself, is only a child. So, the relationship dynamic is reversed because something about the family system is threatening to the system as a whole. So a child takes up the role of caring for the parent, making sure that parent is not triggered if I'm asking for something that is not available, or maybe if I ask something which my father or mother are not able to provide me. It can be something material, it can be something emotional. I'm going to upset my parent. So the child withdraws from life itself. So that's the first thing we have to understand from the orders of love. The second the second thing that we have to understand is that every child has a right to belong. And we all know that from a constellation's perspective, every child that is conceived, whether they were able to make it to life or not, has a place. So the right to belong needs to be ensured. So this includes, we all know that, miscarriages, stillbirths, abortions, children who died young, children given up for adoption, right? And obviously, a child is going to unconsciously feel something is missing when these pregnancies are not honored, the one who could not come to life. So when they are not acknowledged, when they are not grieved, families may continue to carry the impact in different ways. And oftentimes, the one who is the most vulnerable one in that system tends to get affected, which happens to be a child. So they may start to feel rejected. They may start to feel anger as well at such a small age. So maybe they are 4, 5, 6 years of age, and they have those tantrums. They have those very apt reaction to a certain situation, and they can't be comforted. Maybe they have a lot of illogical emotions coming up. So the child begins to get entangled as early as those years if there is, for example, an abortion in the system. So, whatever that child who was not able to have a life of their own, a body of their own, right? Whatever, whatever that child experienced because of the abortion is going to get sort of entangled with a child who made it to life later on. So a child can also definitely get entangled with the emotions of anyone in the system who is forgotten, who has not been remembered, even if this child who came later is unaware of it. So, a secret child, for example. So,
That's the every family
hmm,
has abandonment, rejection, all of those, let's say, uh, negative emotional perspectives that might have happened
yeah,
out of whatever circumstances may not be realistically they
yeah.
wanted to do it, but whatever circumstances. So it isn't everybody, all of us. I would like probably each one of us, So it's how do you draw a boundary to these things while you're healing?
Hmm. You are
Because
specifically talking about
like
abandonment?
let it be abandonment, let it be
Okay.
rejection, it has its own roots and its own
Yeah, both are
causes.
actually related also.
Yeah, so um when we are healing, like, most of us who are healing as well, um, we know this is happening. Okay,
Hmm.
almost all of
Correct.
us know this is a situation.
At least we
How do we
figure out
draw
the
a
language
boundary?
first.
Yeah,
We are able to understand the language. We can name
yeah,
it
we
now.
kind of aware that this is coming
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, or this is that, or we can connect things.
Hmm.
The awareness helps, and the healing is also going on. Um, but we don't know where is the boundary, because I don't know if this is because of rejection or this is because of abandonment. It just seems to mix through.
See, the abandonment causing sense of rejection in the child. So they are connected now. So when we go through abandonment, so abandonment is not physical also, it is emotional abandonment also. Right? A person has not been attuned. So of course there were different layers that I worked with even in the morning. So it's quite fresh also. So one of the
Mm.
things that came up was because this woman is very masculine, right, in her energy, and she's identifying that in herself so much so that she had to get her uh, ovaries removed a week before today. So just few days ago, she had to get that removed. So her womb space is also affected because she had to protect herself her entire life, become a man, which is not available to her since childhood. There is no man, right? And her mother was also very domineering, controlling, and things like that. But there is a part of her, despite being very overprotective of herself in the masculine energy, there's still a part of her that wants to be in a relationship and cannot be. So, what came up was,
That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, we understand, we're working towards it, we're
yeah,
healing, but you still cannot move out of that space totally. You're still
yes, because
somewhere
there
in
are
that
still
space.
inner parts that will not let us individuate. Remember, I talked about individuation. There are inner
Only
parts
system.
that, yeah, there are very sticky, protective parts that will not let us individuate. And therefore, because of that, we keep longing for something to happen before we even make that choice of individuating. Individuating means becoming an adult,
Like,
fully adult, fully whole within, coming to a
that's
level
very
of,
complicated, because
it is
when
because
we,
yeah, because I have not 100% maybe, but maybe 80 to 85% individuated already. And I feel that within myself. I am one of those people I have to acknowledge who are very super clingy in terms of my attachment style. I always wanted something else to make me feel a certain way. And whatever I longed for felt more distant to me, whatever that is. So that could be relationship, that could be money, that could be a certain idea of how I want anything in my life. So whatever I cling on, whatever I chase, let's reframe the word, felt more distant to me. Creating an identity of myself, right? So maybe there is a part of you that has identified so much with the trauma. Think of that, Rani. That now that trauma identity is leading your life.
that's going to be like, it's going to take a while for us to explore and find that who is
Yes,
that
yes,
person, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm under, probably for me, if I'd say I'm under that exploration to
Yes,
actually
and I think for
understand.
some of us that exploration doesn't really end
No.
easily.
What's that?
Some of us, the exploration
Mm.
has to go a lot deeper than what we understand. We have to go a lot deeper to see what parts of us are still tied to the trauma identity, basically. I actually had to work on that since my condition, the knee situation happened.
That's
So I'm
recent,
talking,
right?
that's recent I'm talking about. That's why, since you're asking me, and because I'm working on that, I have to cleared a lot of that. Disconnecting from the trauma identity, which means that if I'm identified with that, that identification is going to be confirmed again and again through different experiences. Somebody is still going to come and tell me I'm abandoned or I'm not good enough, or until and unless I go through some pain, I'm not going to go through awakening. Okay, so all of those are identities, right? Because that identity also helped us wake up, do the work. So it's quite deeply enmeshed inside of ourselves, and it's a very sticky energy. So individuation is the goal. How can I individuate from my family system? Because unless I have a longing for something to shift here, I am still a child. I'm not an adult. So, do I want my mother to accept me or to say some words of appreciation that I have never heard in my entire life? So, if that longing is still there, I'm giving you an example, right? And or I'm overworking, I'm overperforming, right? I'm over giving to other people, still from a perspective of needing some validation, still a child space, not an adult space. Because an
I'm
adult
looking at
does not
you.
need that. Hmm?
I have a lot of clients also who are hyper independent, like totally in their space, doing well for themselves, who's running 3 companies,
Yeah,
have a relationship going on.
yeah,
But even for them, they are like, there is a stuckness towards an identity, that
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess
So
that
once you will
there's a
explore that inside of
validation.
you, Rani, once you explore that
Yeah.
inside of you, what is not allowing you to individuate fully, or this identity I was talking about, you will attract clients who'll reveal the same to you. And you will feel and sense that something is not really shifting, or something is also sticky over there. Now what do I do about that? So it is always about you, and then you see shift over there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you for that question. Hi, Samira. Samira, I think you're joining
Um,
for the first time. If you can just
yeah, I'm
quickly.
joining for the first time.
Yeah, hi, can you quickly
Hi.
introduce yourself, because I know Rani and Devaki, so if you can introduce yourself.
I can only say I'm just a housewife at home. I
It's
am.
not just a
So,
housewife. Why would you say?
no, actually, I used to work in a bank before. It's been a year. I left the banking and all, so I'm staying at home now.
Ah, okay. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
heard the word just a housewife, so it's not really just. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work,
It's
but you know how
other works.
nobody appreciates it.
But it's more work than other works, my dear.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unpaid labor, I would say.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And you've got children?
Yeah, I've got 2 children. Yes.
Okay. And where are you signing in from?
I'm signing from the Dubai.
Okay, great. So you're here. All right. So all of us
Yeah.
are based here, basically. So there is a family of origin. We come from a mother, father, and then we have lived our certain years of our life with them, which means that system had an influence on us. We were able to survive that system. We were able to meld, mold, or merge with that system. And something about that system oftentimes remains incomplete. Either we were not fully taken care of by our mother and father. Maybe there was a lack of bonding over there. Maybe there was some incompletions. Maybe our father was a cold one, or a distant one, or an angry one. And the children in that system stayed away from the father because it was unsafe to be with him, and maybe unconsciously drifted more towards the energy of the mother and stayed there. All right. So the family of origin is what influences our patterns, our behaviors unconsciously, and often sometimes consciously. So when we come into a relationship and we form our own new system, that new system is not free from the family of origin. So the husband and the wife, both of them, they come from their own respective dynamics that they may have experienced, some good, some bad, some ugly. So they bring all of those influences unconsciously, and it becomes a invisible energy within the present system that has been created. And obviously, for example, if I as a mother have gone through some form of abandonment, and this is what we were talking about when you signed in, when Samita signed in. So if there were abandonment, if there was abuse, if there was violence in the family of origin that I come from, that is going to be recreated again in the system that I create with my partner. So the children who come in that system are going to feel some form of unconscious influence as a result of that. They're going to get affected by that. They're going to get influenced by that. Children unconsciously um, absorb everything that is in the system, which is healed, which is unhealed, which is not spoken about. So when parents come to me sometimes and say that my child is not listening to me, is this is one of the often common themes that I've come across. My child doesn't listen to me, or my child triggers me, and it can be of any age group, yeah, regardless of the age. We are not able to get along with one another, or my child doesn't listen to me at all, I have a child who rebels all the time, a child who doesn't eat properly, so there is an eating problem as well. Maybe the child is a picky eater, or my child has a lot of meltdowns and tantrums and emotional dysregulation. So the first question through constellation framework is, we need to check, and this is what I check with my clients as well. So if it's an angry child, for example, the first thing we need to understand is, has there been anyone in the system, so the mother and the father, who has pushed that anger down? Have they been allowed to express an anger? So if the mother comes to me, my first question is, are you angry at someone? How is your relationship with your husband? Is there any situation, any injustice happening over there, which has not been dealt with, which has not been healed, which the child is exhibiting through his or her behavior? So that is where I was with this topic. Another thing very important, we have to understand that if the connection between the mother and the father is not harmonious, is not loving, is not balanced, the children are going to feel some form of threat because of that. Either the child is going to side with the mother in order to protect the mother. So from an earlier years, child gets entangled between whatever is unresolved in the adult relationship of mother and father. So a child is made from both parents, mother and father. When a child feels pressured to reject, judge, or choose, this is also a common theme that happens. A child is often unconsciously and unconsciously also made to choose between the mother and father and make that choice. They may experience, as a result of that, an inner conflict because a child naturally identify with both. Helping a child remain connected where it is safe and appropriate to both parents support a stronger sense of identity and belonging, which means that the child should not be placed in a position to choose between any of the parents. So that is one thing. Um, there's another often deep pattern that I've seen in such cases, is that children also easily get affected by children who were not able to make it to life. I quickly talked about that in the first few minutes. Is that if there were pregnancies that were conceived but were not fully, they were not able to have a life of their own, those unborn siblings, through miscarriages, abortions, or still births, are still going to have an effect on the siblings, on the children who made it to life. So a child gets entangled with the unborn siblings. Children are also unconsciously representing inner children of a parent or of grandparents, right? That has been a very important insight I have gained over the years, that uh, unconsciously we as children also, and also our children, can carry the inner children. So I'm not sure if all of you understand what inner children is. Inner children are all those parts of us that has gone through some form of developmental trauma. Either there is an attachment wound, maybe the mother was absent, maybe the father was absent, maybe there was a natural unnatural split between the mother and father through divorces and separations, or through untimely death also. So that creates a developmental trauma in the life of a child. And because of that trauma, the child is frozen in a timeline. I sometimes call it a timeline capsule. So a child part of us is encapsulated in a timeline where they have gone through some form of traumas, they have gone through some kind of emotional dysregulation, and there was no one to regulate them or comfort them or help them process what was happening in their life. So children are often unconsciously carrying inner children of the parent and the grandparents as well. Children unconsciously also become triangulated. So, triangulation means they are unconsciously standing in a position of an adult when there are adult issues that remain unresolved. So, the child is not really free to be a child when the mother and father are going through some form of conflict or chaos. The child feels unsafe in that environment and unconsciously all the time step in to make sure family stays together, the family does not collapse. So they may take up the role of a caretaker, they may take up the role of the protector of one of the parent in order to make sure the system does not collapse. And oftentimes, what is also seen, so in case of a split between the mother and the father, what the child is consciously going to be with one of the parent, unconsciously the behavior, they're still going to get entangled with the unconscious behavior of the father, for example. So consciously be with one parent, unconsciously be with the other parent. So that also creates a split loyalty. This is what it's called in family constellation. It becomes a split loyalty between the both parents. There is one very important thing sometimes people ask me is that why children carry the family pain. Like I said, children carry blind love and loyalty towards their system, towards their mother and father. Their greatest need is not food, it's not education, it's not success. Their deepest need is the need to belong, need to feel safe, need to be seen and acknowledged and heard. Sometimes when those needs are not met, so for example, if the mother was very unregulated, one of the child is going to pick up her emotions and may start feeling all the emotions that the mother is not able to process. For example, if there is anger in the system, one of the child is going to start feeling a lot of anger, and parents are not going to understand why our child is behaving that way. They may lash out at him, they may be violent towards him, try to make sure that he's contained all the time without even probing into the deeper root causes where this behavior be coming from. So parents often say, why is my child behaving like this? The systemic question to ask is, what might my child be communicating to me through this behavior? Because behavior is a way of communication for a child who does not have a language to express what they're actually feeling inside. So an aggressive child may be carrying unexpressed anger from generations or through one of his parents. An anxious child may be carrying the fear of a mother. Anxious child carrying the fear of a mother, which means the mother and her nervous system has not been regulated enough. A parentified child, which means a parent has become the caretaker of a mother or of a father, feels responsible for everyone's happiness, and such children continue these behaviors into their adulthood also. A child who often gets sick is sometimes unconsciously trying to bring love back into the family through their health issue, through their illness. Because something about the system lacks warmth, care, attention. So, a child who is withdrawn is probably protecting themselves from some form of emotional overwhelm, which is already in the system, has not been processed fully. Guys, I want you to, so there are reflection questions that I want you to think about. Maybe if you have a pen and a paper, that would be helpful. Of course, this is optional, but it helps to understand what I'm talking about. Because it's important to understand that our children are also our mirror. They're always mirroring something back to us. So if we don't look at them as a mirror, we actually lose out on a very important opportunity of healing something within ourselves and within the system at large. So there are a few reflection questions. One of the question I want you to look at is what behavior in your child or children, you can pick any one child if you've got more than one, So what behavior in your child triggers you the most? So this is a different question than how do I stop this behavior, right? Which doesn't really stop the behavior at all. So what behavior in your child triggers you the most? What about that child upsets you, triggers you, frustrates you, all those words? So write that down. Then there are more questions. I'll go on with that. Take a minute to reflect on that. How old is that child when they have been triggering you or when they are triggering you? So what is their age? How old are they? And what are they asking for, or what are they doing basically? What is their behavior? What is their demand that triggers you? So maybe write that down also. Give me a thumbs up, guys, if if you're able to do that bit. Yeah, okay, good. Samira and Devaki, I don't know if you guys are doing it, but just let me know. Or ask me if something is not clear, because we are going deeper with this. And then, so the behavior that's triggering you, what is their age? What are they asking you for that is triggering the whole cycle? Then I want you to look back at your own childhood when you were the same age as your own child. So, for example, I'll give you an example. If your child is 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, for example, and they are triggering something inside of you, they are upsetting you or frustrating you, and the bond is very, very disruptive. So, at the same age, I need you to go back and reflect on what was happening to you when you were of the same age. 5, 10, 15, whatever that age you have written. And what did you need the most at that time? Did you wanted to hear something from someone? Was there a need of yours that was not being met? What emotions did you had back then that have been long forgotten or suppressed? This activity is something that I do with myself all the time. And that is why I'm asking you to do it, because I do it all the time. I've got two children as well, age 12 and 17. And ever since I've discovered this, whenever I have something going on between me and my child, I actually use this to dissolve that frustration or that upset feeling that I'm having or anything of that sort. This is exactly what I do. I look at my child as a mirror. I know their age. So whatever they're triggering in me, I go back to my age, and I am always successfully able to figure out what is my child mirroring with me. And now it has become so spontaneous that I don't have to really do it like a therapy session within myself. I do it unconsciously, consciously all the time. I'm just able to go back in time and figure out, okay, this is what is happening. This is what were my needs that were not met. So very often we react to our children from the age at what time we were wounded. So whenever we were wounded in our childhood is the same age our child is going to always 100% of the time trigger us. I'm giving you a very, very doable formula, a therapeutic tool to deal with any situation that may arise between you and your child. So is there anyone who wants to share anything? Are you able to discover anything for yourself while you were doing this reflection with me?
Okay. Can I share?
Yeah, Samira, please go on.
You know what? My son, he exactly mimics my behavior, like when I was a child. Like,
How
when
old
we
is he?
all are ready, he's 10 years old age.
Okay.
So, whenever we are going somewhere out,
Hmm.
he will say, "No, I don't feel like going." He is also ready, but he will say, "I don't want to go."
Hmm.
And this is what exactly I used to do.
Hmm.
I remember when I was 13 years of age, I used to do like this
Hmm. Not
with my
wanting to go
mom,
out.
and my mom, like, I don't want to go out. I don't look good in this. You all are wearing better clothes than me.
Ah,
All of that. And I
interesting.
used to tell my mom, you always wear nice clothes, new clothes, while I'm wearing the old clothes and all of that. I used to tell my mom like that.
Do you
So
buy clothes now?
yeah, I buy a lot of clothes, but I've stopped now for now. But I used to buy a lot of clothes.
Yeah, yeah. So in adult years, we often try to complete a movement or
Yeah.
anything of that sort, what remained incomplete, as children. So that's why I asked, are you buying a lot of clothes?
Yeah, yeah. I used to buy, but now I consciously don't buy.
Yeah, I mean, because that was my pattern also. I remember as a
Yeah.
child, you wanted to have a lot of, good clothes, lot of stocks up there, but
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to because there were not, financially the things were not like that. But when I
Yeah.
grew up, when I had my own money, the only thing I do was shop clothes, and then I identified within myself, oh my God, I'm actually doing something that I was not able to do in my childhood, but I longed for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To same here. I'm also I used to do like this, and
Hmm.
then I remember I used to always have a fight with my mom that why are you always wearing new clothes when we are going out, while I'm like wearing all sorts of old clothes, and I used to have eczema also on my face. So
Ah,
my mom used to tell in front of everyone, see, she's not putting cream, and she's got eczema all over her face. So I used to feel bad that I will be looking ugly in those children. So
that,
my son also, he's also somewhat like that. He also, I feel, has that like his self-esteem is a bit low. I also feel just like
right,
I was having at that point of time.
right. So eczema also says, have you come out of that, or is it still?
Yeah, yeah, I don't have eczema anymore. I have
Okay.
healed completely out of eczema now.
Since we are on the topic of you and your child, eczema in a child also represents the need to be held.
Mm,
The need to be held. So the warmth of the mother is probably not there as much as desired.
mm.
The child develops skin disorders, such as that one. One of the things. Let's do one more reflection question. I've got so many over here. Let's do one more and then we'll wrap it up. I want you to think about the family rules growing up. So, which emotions were welcomed in your family and which emotions, sorry, let's do the other one. Which emotions in your family system were not welcomed? Emotions that were not welcome. And because if we if we used to do that, there used to be a consequence. So, what emotions in your system were not welcomed, not allowed? And that is something we still struggle with. So, that is a connect. So, in my system, as a girl child, I was not allowed. I'll talk for myself. I was not allowed to cry. Can you believe it? Whenever I used to cry, my dad used to get very angry at me. And this is something I do very regularly now, even now. I cry whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed inside of me. And then I feel good about it because nobody's telling me not to cry. I cry it out. So crying was not allowed. So showing emotions were not allowed. And through many, many years that I've experienced with my family, they used to say, she's creating drama, she's seeking attention because of that. But it wasn't true in my case. I just used to feel a lot of heavy emotions at times. And nobody sat down with me to comfort me with those emotions also, which is something the therapy world gave me, helped me name those emotions and helped me comfort and soothe them. That is the job of a therapist. She helps you regulate your emotions, what your system could have offered you, manage them. So, what emotions in your system were not welcomed, that were unsafe to express? I gave you my example, guys. Feel free to share yours if anybody wants to.
I guess in my family, we were not allowed to be happy. We can't smile. We shouldn't laugh. They say laughing is a bad girl's laugh. And so I used to watch comedy and cartoon and laugh, and my father and mother used to get angry. Why you laugh? Because in my house, mostly they were fighting. So I'll be watching some cartoon and then laughing. They're like, we are seriously fighting and you are laughing. I'm like, you're always fighting.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Not allowed to laugh. Maybe
Not
loud.
allowed to laugh. You shouldn't be happy. If you're happy, something bad will happen.
Yeah,
So
oh,
you
that's a
shouldn't
huh?
be like very happy. There's very limited allowances of.
Correct.
It's an allowance in a day is this much happiness.
Oh,
Uh,
it's a
Feeling good
different
about
worded
yourself
from so
is not
many
allowed.
people. If you're happy, something bad will happen, which means when some opportunity comes where we are supposed to be happy, we are also fearful. We
Yeah.
carry
So,
more
it's,
fear than, the joy of
fear
happiness.
of sustenance. Yeah. Everybody lived on the fear of future. Uh, so everybody lived to prepare for future. I guess the emotion that we were allowed in our house was be
Worry.
aware of what's coming in the future, especially for girls, because
Yeah.
we were three girls. So we were told that
Mm.
life is dangerous. And like, I think in those days, I believed if you shake hands, you'll get pregnant. We were that level. So we were not supposed to be looking at guys and talking to them would probably,
Was next
create a
level
relationship
viral.
there or yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess I was brought up with that sort of a fear. So yeah,
So that
we
also
were
makes you
living in
worry the future,
constant
now. Worry of the future. So emotions that were allowed in
fear
one
of
case was
future
worry,
was,
and what was not allowed
yeah, constant
was
fear
to
of
be
future
happy.
is how we live.
Hmm?
Yeah, happiness is not allowed. I still see my family members still sad that they're doing very well. They are all settled. Their children are married off. They're still sad. They
Yeah,
have to persevere to remain sad. They will
yeah.
invent
See,
sickness.
if there is some,
They will invent.
I'm picking up on that. See, if there is some loyalty to that also in
Must
your
be there.
space, Rani.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
But I'm not sad. I'm happy. Only maybe like last year I'm quiet because I have a lot of work and I've like cut
yeah,
off from a lot of people. But I'm very extrovert, very going out from
absolutely.
the beginning. So I was always the odd one out who would talk
Yeah,
too
yeah. So
much, who
you're
would laugh
allowing
too
yourself
much.
what was not allowed to you.
Yes, I allowed it
Yeah,
from as a child.
absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else wants to share anything? And then probably, I've got more reflection questions if you guys want to. We can do it. Otherwise, I'll call it a day. Anybody wants to share anything?
Yeah, some more reflection questions maybe I can ask and see. My
Yeah,
childhood.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
one or two more questions.
Everybody wants to continue? Mavish, you're online. You're not even. What happened? Do you want to share anything? Okay. Okay. Another reflection question is your parenting triggers. So when does parenting feel hardest to you? So is that when your child says no? Is that when your child cries? Is that when your child becomes angry? Because these are the general themes. Is that when your child withdraws? Is that when your child becomes anxious or overwhelmed? Is that when your child does not listen? So, out of these. So, now it is about your triggers again. When a child says no, cries, becomes angry, withdraws, becomes anxious, does not listen. I think for me, if I have to pick up one, it's when my child becomes anxious because that has been my own struggle also. And because it had to be regulated through the healing journey for many years, when I see my children going through it, it sorts of reminds me of the struggles I have to go through, and I try to comfort them, basically completing a movement within myself that it's okay to be anxious as a child, but it does trigger something inside me. I become very worrisome. I worry a lot when both of my or any of my child is going through anxiousness, so that triggers something inside of me. And as you're saying that, just write down whatever resonates for you. So when your child says no, cries, becomes angry, withdraws from you, becomes anxious, does not listen, which one resonate? And then ask yourself, who in my childhood wasn't allowed to behave this way? So, like I'm giving an example of myself, I wasn't allowed to be anxious. I wasn't allowed to express what I was carrying inside. Nobody was there to listen to me. So that is my reflection. So it's the anxiety that as a parent gets triggered inside of me. So tell me, what is your truth from this question? If anybody wants to share.
Okay, I'll share, now my parenting trigger is that when my children don't listen to me,
Okay,
because
that
I
one.
remember I was also like this. I never listened to my mom.
Okay. So now,
Until today, I don't listen to her.
okay. And when you see your children doing the same, it triggers
Yeah.
you.
Yes, and once even it happened that when I slammed the door on my mom's face. I clearly remember that. And you know what? My child also once she did to me. So
Huh.
I clearly remember that. Oh my God, karma came so quickly. I
Yeah.
thought it will come in my
Yeah.
20 in my late 20s, but it came so early. So it was like
Wow.
that. I remember
Wow. Which
clearly what
means there is
happened.
some incompletion between the mother line, huh? Between you and
Yeah,
your
yeah,
mother.
there
And
is.
now your children are representing that for you, which you need to
Yes,
heal within.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Nice. Nice revelation. Anybody else wants to share anything? Thank you, Samira, for that. So, guys, just remember one thing: children do not want perfect parents. This is something we all have gone through. We wanted perfect parents for ourselves, and obviously, we never had it, right? Children are basically looking for a parent who is present. I think this will be my closing line for today's awareness talk. They're not looking for perfect parents. They're only looking for parents who can stay present, who can take accountability, who can tell the child, regardless of what their age is, that I can handle it. You don't have to worry about me. And I've seen in my years of experience that even if a child is a young child, even if it's an adult child in a system, when they hear something of that sort from their parents, then I can handle it. You don't have to worry about me. I am the strong one. I am present with for you. So there is a moral support happening between a child and a parent. The child can go into the world and do something about their life without feeling that tug, that pull from their own family system, where they are still worried about their mother, emotionally or financially, or there is something happening between the mother and the father, and the adult child is always feeling responsible to heal something about that dynamic. So a parent needs to be more present, needs to work on themselves, needs to be more regulated, needs to learn. It's a learning curve, honestly, how to soothe themselves first, and make sure the child is not burdened by whatever remained incomplete in our own life, even in our own childhood. They are not responsible for carrying our incompletions, our inner children. Like I said, it's not their responsibility. So they are not looking for a perfect angelic parent. What they deserve, what they desire is a parent who listens even when they are triggered. Okay. And I think this is a beautiful sentence that I've got here. The greatest gift we can give our children is not a perfect future, but the freedom to simply be children. So this also is about adult children, so that they are free to move into the world and make something about their life and do something great with their life, right? Any questions before I end the awareness talk? Any insights? Anything you want to add? Devaki, what did you write? Thank you so much, Aista, for this session. Many insights in the question helped me to reflect. Thank you so much, Devaki, and thank you for joining. I think we are done for today. Thank you so much, Samira, for logging in. Mavish, Rani, have a good day, and thank you so much for attending.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye.